It has come to my attention that I may script my videos out a little too rigidly. Now, I admit I'm a pretty rigid person, a pretty anxious person, I can't write in threes anymore. My point is, I rehearse conversations in my head that haven't even happened yet. Like full-on flowchart style. I Google the parking situation before I go anywhere and watch the same shows over and over again and definitely make sure I know the menu and floor plan before trying out a new place to eat. Spontaneity is decidedly not for me. Change is hard, really hard. Like, I even lose my shit when the grocery store end caps change. And I know this carries over into other aspects of my life, like conversation and writing. I get how nonsensical similes and mixed metaphors have apparently been co-opted, but I spend most of my time writing technical reports, and by the end of the day, my mind is mulch. So today, I'm Jack Kerouacking this shit. Or maybe I should say Diane DePrima-ing this shit, since female beat poets are so often overlooked. Not the point. You get it though, right? Stream of consciousness kind of thing. I'm still trying to find my own voice and style here and can't believe anyone actually watches these, so thank you for watching or listening and all the constructive comments. You guys are awesome, truly. Okay, enough rambling preamble. Today I want to share some point-and-click adventures and some other adventure game adjacent titles that I've recently discovered. Now, I did want to have some semblance of structure here, so all these games have to meet a certain criteria. First, they need to be under $5. Second, must have under 100 Steam reviews. Third, cannot be more than 3 years old. I think all, if not most of these games mentioned here have come out late 2025 or 2026, so yay. And my fourth criteria, playable in under 3 to 5 hours. Needless to say, this is not a comprehensive list. I'm sure to have missed some treasures trying to sift through the sands of all the hidden object games that will inevitably be miscategorized as point and clicks. Also, I'm not including games that aren't on Steam, but there are some great games on itch.io that definitely deserve your time, and I already have an ongoing list of those that I want to showcase in another video. Okay, getting down to business. The first game on this list is The Sphere. I found this guy the way you find everything good now, perusing the tide pool that is the adventure game subreddit at 1 a.m. And lucky for me, some gems washed ashore. The Sphere opens with a guy standing outside looking at the night sky. You eventually run out of beer and go to grab another, and another. You wander into this man's home and the story slowly unravels. Dirty dishes fill the sink, half-packed boxes line the floor, boxes his wife packed and has yet to come back for, pictures hang on the walls, pictures too hard to look at. It's never explicitly stated, but it becomes very clear that this man is grieving. As you're looking at the night sky, a perfectly round sphere falls from it. Aptly named, yeah? You're intrigued. You bring it inside, and eventually use it to communicate with the cosmos. There are 3 main screens, the outside, the main house, and the basement. And I sort of took the state of things as being a liminal space, neither here nor there. This guy's life is in limbo. Now, I also tend to read into things, so there is a very good chance this is not what the dev intended at all, and I've misread the subtext and symbolism. The Sphere is a short, atmospheric point-and-click. The subject is heavy, but the game is grounded. It tells the story it sets out to tell, and that's that. No more, no less, and I think that's for the best. Don't expect to be solving any big mysteries or going on any huge adventures. There are some reviews that criticize this game for having no story or just being a prologue to something, in quotation marks, more. And I think that's really unfair. Just because a game is short and quiet doesn't mean it isn't whole. That said, if this ever does get a follow-up, I'd love to see it told from someone else's perspective. The wife, the kid, maybe even the sphere. Imagine being a perfectly normal cosmic object, just minding your business, and you fall into the saddest house on the block. Ever wake up at 3 a.m. with something you think is just so poignant you reach for your phone because you have to write it down? Well, I have and I did, and it happens to be how I would best describe this game. Looking at it now with a couple cups of coffee consumed, it's definitely not a poignant or very poetic description, but I'm leaving it in anyway because try as I might, my sobering mind can't think of a better one, or even a clever one. So, how to describe this game. Saying atmospheric or contemplative isn't enough. It's melancholic technicolor. It's nostalgic and tragic, whimsical yet wistful. There must be a word out there that can describe this feeling, the very specific feeling this game gives you. A word that maybe isn't in English. It's like if Elliott Smith, Enya, and Susie Sue started a band. Happy, sad, weird, funny, mostly tragic, yet oddly meditative. I'm talking about Dreams in the Peacock House, a short, narrative, point-and-click, text-adventure, visual novel, haunted dollhouse, dream object art project. Yes, that is too many genre words stacked together like some mystic sandwich, but somehow, against all the natural laws of both God and Steam tagging, the thing works. In this game, you play as Argus, a man who has apparently been asleep for a very long time. After years of isolation, Argus wakes up inside the Peacock House and decides that maybe it's time to leave this dream mansion full of esoteric eyes, lost memories, and scrapbooked insect aristocrats. Your primary goal is to explore the Peacock House, find the mystic eyes, unlock the sanctum sanctorum, and recover these lost dreams from a more blissful time. And already I'm seated. I'm buckled, I have my little tray table up. Please place the weird little game directly into my open palms. Thank you very much. Mechanically, Dreams in the Peacock House blends 3 different adventure game styles: point-and-click exploration, text adventure style / parser commands, and visual novel presentation. The game also keeps things simple enough that you're not spending your entire playthrough trying to brute force the English language into a tiny command box. And here's where I need to give the game a massive, thunderous standing ovation. When you finish it, it tells you what you've missed, which is incredibly generous and makes you actually want to replay to find all the little secrets you overlooked the first go-around. Think about how many adventure games would rather watch you slowly dehydrate in a corner than tell you forgot to examine the suspicious spoon in room 3. There are definitely games out there that treat basic information like state secrets. They'll let you wander around for 2 hours clicking every brick in a wall, while the solution is something like use damp cheese on wallpaper. Not Dreams in the Peacock House. This game, like a benevolent dream butler, says, hey, you missed some stuff. Maybe go back and poke around. And I respect that deeply. That doesn't mean the game's holding your hand. It just means that it has the decency not to trap you forever inside an infinite possibility space where the command could be look, inspect, touch, consider, ponder, lick, or cry at object. The game understands that the mystery is fun, but administrative suffering is not the same as emotional depth. The puzzles themselves are fairly light, and the part of me that has played too many Sierra titles, and now thinks being mildly inconvenienced is a personality trait, did want them to be a little more complex. I would have loved 1 or 2 really chewy puzzle moments. Something that makes you sit back in your chair and whisper, oh, you sick little freak, with admiration. But I also don't think this game is really about the puzzles at all. This game is moods, vibes, tone, and on that front, it succeeds. The whole thing feels dreamlike in the actual sense, not just the lazy, hazy, weird things happen, therefore this is a dream sense, where you understand something emotionally before you understand it logically. You know the house means something. You know the eyes mean something. You know the old television show, the chaotic elegance of the bourgeoisie means something. Even if your waking brain is standing there holding a clipboard going, I'm sorry, the dragonfly said what now? And look, I'm not going to pretend I fully understand every symbolic fiber stitched into this strange little peacock tapestry. In fact, after reading some Steam reviews, I think I completely lost the plot. My brain went somewhere way darker than the game may have intended. I have my interpretation, you may have yours. Meanwhile, the developer may be sitting somewhere like, wow, none of you are even close. But that's part of the fun, right? That's part of art, right? It gives you enough shape to hold on to without flattening the whole thing into one clean answer. I mean, I don't know what else you people want from independent games. A dream house, mystic eyes, text commands, emotional ambiguity, beautiful, beautiful surreal art, a duck named Herbert. This is more than a complete breakfast. Speaking of breakfasts, next on the docket we have Cooking is Magic. Now, this is the part of the video where I do something I don't usually do, which is tell you a game isn't very good. I didn't like this. I'm including it anyway, because far be it from me to be the authority on what a good indie adventure looks like. And hey, you might love it. Taste is taste. That said, I did not like this game. Normally, I don't post negative reviews unless something's actually offensive, and I also don't finish things I'm not enjoying. Books, shows, games, doesn't matter. Life's too short and my queue's too long. This one was short enough that I made the exception mostly out of curiosity. I liked the art, genuinely. It's got that spooky, hand-drawn, childlike quality, and I mean that in the best of ways. Everything looks like it was illustrated by someone with a very calm voice and a very troubling journal. Think lowbrow Fran Bow. This is probably where I should talk about the premise, or my interpretation of the premise, because I'm not totally sure I extracted any actual plot from this game, so here it goes. You were a famous chef. You get murdered. You end up in purgatory, where your job is to serve meals that are repulsive, completely criminal, genuinely upsetting to 4 creepy customers. Eventually, you end up serving yourself. Like, literally. And that gets you out of purgatory? Question mark? I'm putting the question mark there on purpose because I'm still not exactly sure. Now, as a former cook myself, I can appreciate the supposed symbolism. Giving your literal blood, sweat, and tears to produce something that undeserving, unkind people then just casually consume. That's a good idea. I want that idea to work. But the mechanics aren't on the same level as the concept. And I think that's the whole problem. You can't pick things up and carry them around until you actually need them, which might sound like a small complaint, until it's the thing standing between you and every single puzzle solution. At that point, it stops being a quirk and it starts being ludonarrative dissonance. The game is telling me one story about sacrifice and craft, I think, and the systems underneath are telling me an entirely different story about hunting for a cursor hotspot, but nope, can't grab that yet. The story also felt heavily influenced by The Supper, but it didn't fully cohere for me. I followed the vibe more than the plot. The epilogue was, by a wide margin, the most compelling stretch of the whole runtime, which is kind of a strange thing to say about a game, but here we are. I'm not saying this game is objectively bad. Neither the story nor mechanics worked for me specifically, and that's as much as a me thing as it is a them thing. I do recommend this game for people with a higher tolerance for body horror and inventory jank, or people who, unlike me, actually finish everything they start. Moving on to Solis. Solis begins at dusk. Night is coming, and with it, probably a moral crisis. This grungy city is hand-drawn, quiet, and strange in that specific way cities get strange after dark. Streets feel emptied out, but not abandoned. Both hallowed and hollowed. Buildings sit like sentinels, silent, waiting. The music hums underneath everything with this moody lo-fi pulse. Almost as though someone has left a cassette tape playing in the back room of a failing tech startup that leaks from the vents and the city sidewalks. And into this soft little urban unease walks Billy. Blue hair, trench coat. Billy works for Elixir, a company that has made one of those promises that sounds inspirational, but is actually deeply alarming. Eternal life. Not longer battery life, not better sleep, not a revolutionary app that turns your grocery list into a blockchain-enabled mindfulness journey. Eternal life, the big impossible product. The thing Gwyneth Paltrow and every billionaire, pharaoh, cult leader, and skincare commercial has been circling since the dawn of human vanity. And Billy has helped sell it. She's not some random detective wandering into the evil company's basement with a flashlight. She's part of the machine. She's a marketer. And that makes her complacent. Complicit? And that makes her complicit in this whole scheme. She's helped take whatever Elixir is doing behind closed doors and translate it into something clean, desirable, and public-facing. Something people can believe in. Something people can buy. But by the time the game begins, belief has started to curdle. Billy is looking for the CEO of Elixir, this elusive figure sitting at the center of the company's promises like a snake in a Patagonia vest. And as she moves through Solis, from dusk until dawn, the city starts to fill in around her. There aren't any huge exposition dumps or dramatic cinematic flashbacks, but most of what she learns is through conversation, fragments, through people with different relationships to Elixir and different levels of faith in the miracle that they've been sold. Some people still believe, Some people are suspicious. Some people seem tired in a way that suggests they believed once and paid dearly for it. And Billy just has to listen. That's most of what this game asks you to do. Walk, look, talk. Keep moving through the night while the story gathers itself in little pieces around you. The interface stays sparse, almost invisible, which works because this is not really a game about mastering big systems. It's mostly about absorbing mood until you start to feel the shape of the lie underneath it. The more Billy hears, the less stable Elixir's promise becomes. Eternal life stops sounding like salvation and starts sounding more like branding. A miracle with a marketing department. Immortality as a product launch. Death itself dragged into a boardroom and forced to sit through a pitch deck. And because Billy helped sell that dream, the question becomes more uncomfortable than just, what is Elixir hiding? It kind of becomes, what does Billy owe the truth after helping package this lie? Billy's not innocent in the clean, easy way protagonists often are. She may not know everything, she's pretty in the dark at the beginning, but she knows enough to understand that her job may be doing something devious. Marketing isn't neutral. It's not just a cute little corporate function with fonts and slogans and a Canva subscription. It's the process by which something terrifying becomes palatable, palpable. As the night moves forward, Billy encounters more people, more doubts, more little cracks in Elixir's shiny surface. The city becomes less like a place and more like a pressure cooker. Every conversation pushes her closer to a decision. Remain loyal to Elixir or come out with the truth. The issue is that Solis sometimes feels like it reaches that question before the story has fully earned the weight of the answer. Billy's journey has all the ingredients for something really sharp: a morally compromised protagonist, a suspicious immortality company, a city full of competing perspectives and stratified societies, and a story inspired by Theranos, tech billionaires, deepfakes, conspiracy culture, and the modern nightmare rectangle we all keep in our pockets. Solis should be a buffet of contemporary rot, a charcuterie board of technological dread. But the game is short, very short. And while I do love short games, and this might be contradictory to what I said above about the Sphere, there is a difference between a story that is compact and a story that feels like it was just getting started. Solis has an ending. I guess it has multiple endings. Your decisions supposedly shift the text and influence what follows. But when the credits rolled, I was left with one big question hovering over the whole experience. Did my choices matter? Or did they mostly just change the lighting in the room? And honestly, I don't really know. That doesn't ruin the game. Sometimes choice matters emotionally more than mechanically. Sometimes the point isn't to create a massive branching storyline, but to make the player feel responsible for the version of the story they choose to inhabit. And I like that kind of thing. I'm susceptible to that kind of thing. I'm the exact sort of person who will stare at a 2-option dialogue choice for 5 minutes like I'm negotiating a peace treaty. But with Solis, I wanted more time, more build-up, more consequence, more of Billy being squeezed between the company she works for and the truth she is slowly uncovering. The game sets up this morally sticky situation and then ends before the stickiness can solidify. The narrative and art are great, but I think the pacing may be problematic. Still, there is something here. The city has mood, the music has texture, the hand-drawn art gives Solis a strong identity, and the inclusion of sculptural work by real artists adds this odd physicality to the world, like pieces of our reality have been smuggled into Billy's. The game feels less like a traditional adventure story and more like wandering through a small, unsettling exhibit about corporate belief. At its best, Solis feels like a nighttime urban walk through the ruins of a promise. A company said it could defeat death. A marketer helped make that sound beautiful. A city listened. And by dawn, Billy has to decide what to do with the truth. That's a great setup, but that's where the game ends. And I just wish that the game gave itself enough room to fully become the story it seems to be reaching for. If you like short narrative games, moody lo-fi atmosphere, hand-drawn cities, morally uneasy protagonists, and stories about technology companies promising salvation while definitely hiding something horrible in the server room, Solis is worth playing. But if you need the story to feel complete, if you want every theme to land with full force, this one might leave you wanting for more. To conclude, Solis is a stylish little grunge tech-noir night walk about eternal life, corporate loyalty, and the terrifying possibility that marketing may be one of the darkest arts. It doesn't fully satisfy, but it lingers a little bit, and sometimes lingering is enough to make a game worth talking about. After wandering through the moody tech nightmare metros of Solis, I needed something a little more familiar. And holy pixel art, here we go. This one got me almost immediately. At first, Upstairs is charming, chunky pixel art. Tiny rooms, expressive little characters, the whole thing is a candied apple with a worm in it. It invites you in with cute little sprites, then quietly locks the door and throws away the key. I really like how many games use the cozy, cute pixel art style, juxtaposed with a much darker storyline. The art is adorable, but the story is not. The cuteness is camouflage. Underneath it, something old, dark, and deeply unwell is breathing in the walls. The game is funny, strange, and playful, but the humor has basement moisture in it. Every joke carries a little mildew, and every oddball character feels charming until they're not. So what's the story? You're a little kid who's been kidnapped by a fanatic, trapped for years, and now finally find a way out. Though not through the front door. No. This is a point-and-click adventure game after all. A normal exit would be illegal. The only path out is up. Floor by floor, room by room, conversation by conversation, you climb through this strange building in search of your freedom. The building is the story's spine, and you can think of every staircase as a sort of chapter break. Mechanically, Upstairs is a classic point-and-click with a verb-based interface, and the humor keeps everything from collapsing into pure misery. Upstairs has darkness, but not the exhausting trenchcoat kind. It has a crooked grin. The jokes are pressure valves that let the game breathe without letting you relax too much. You laugh, and then you realize you're not out of the frying pan yet. And that's one of my favorite adventure game feelings. What I like most about Upstairs is that it understands the basic joy of the genre. The game rewards you with the jokes, clues, dread, and the immediate realization that this building would fail inspection on spiritual grounds. The story has a solid exposition, plot, climax, and a satisfying ending. The definition of short and sweet, point-and-click comfort food. Expired comfort food, but comfort food nonetheless. I recommend it for people who like classic point-and-click games, which if you're here, you probably do, verb interfaces, expressive pixel art, and dark humor. You know how Kentucky Route Zero has been referred to as the next great American novel? Well, The Fire Nobody Started can comfortably fit in the games as literature category. You can probably tuck it right between Papers, Please and Disco Elysium. It's one of the most creative historical nonfiction pieces of media I've ever seen. It does lean very visual novel though, emphasis on the novel. So if you hate words, I'd say it might not be for you, but that would be a lie, because the art is so compelling and beautiful and tells its own story in such a way that the narrative might not even be necessary. And if you think I'm done gushing, well, joke's on you. I had to go back and replay it because my brain got stuck in a Billy Joel loop the first time, and it completely ruined the severity of this game for me. The game follows a family line, beginning in England and continuing into what is now known as America. Each train car is its own little era-shaped ecosystem. The art is jagged and strange and gorgeous. Faces bend and blur, bodies flatten. People look like they've been assembled out of memory, newspaper ink, machinery, and a political science major's fever dream. Every era has its own visual language, so each carriage feels less like a museum scene and more like its own definitive memory. My grandma used to own this antique shop, and instead of everything being haphazardly displayed, she'd do these very specific era tableaus. So while walking through the shop, it would feel like you were truly living or witnessing a different time. Like you stepped into someone's memory, like the breakfast nook or someone's vanity table on their wedding day, which honestly might have done her a disservice because nobody really wanted to mess up the moment in time. And I know this description is meaningless for most people, but it's the most resonant way I can describe it. Bearing witness to another life, moment, perfectly encapsulated, and being inspired to change the moment you're living in. Don't go into this expecting a traditional point-and-click adventure. Go in expecting a historical fever dream with clickable collages. Go in expecting a train ride where the conductor might be a stand-in for capitalism, fate, human nature, colonialism, or 1,000 different other things. It's bleak, yes, but not empty bleak, more like reflective bleak. The train keeps moving, and outside the window, history passes like a landscape already burned once before. You sit there watching the smoke curl backward over everything we call progress, realizing the future will never be built from clean blueprints. It's built from hunger, pain, hope, fear, invention, denial, and all the beautiful, doomed things people carried forward because they could not bear to leave them behind. Let's head on over to God in a Closet. First, I want to address the elephant in the room. Despite the name of this game, I came across no gods nor closets. So my best guess is that the title's pulling from that biblical idea of private prayer. Matthew 6:6 says something like, "Go into your room, close the door, and pray to the unseen Father." Basically, faith is something intimate and hidden and holy. And that does feel thematically appropriate here, because God in a Closet is very much a game about what happens behind closed doors. Not in the creepy haunted house sense, but in a quiet fairy tale way where the house feels like it's been holding its breath for hundreds of years, and the wallpaper has seen so much it's sentient. The game itself is a short, hand-drawn puzzle adventure inspired by Angel's Egg and old fairy tales. You explore a house, read documents, talk to a witch, and resolve whatever hauntings are hidden behind the walls or in the wells. The puzzles are simple, the game is easy enough to move through, and is very much built to be finished in one sitting. Visually, this is where the game is strongest. It has that scratchy, hand-drawn storybook quality, where everything feels delicate and dour at the same time. The story has some solid ideas too, and there are a few twists that show the developer was genuinely trying to build something more thoughtful than just creepy house, go click on a brick. You can feel the care that they put into it. There is a real little haunted heart beating under the floorboards. Maybe even literally. Go play and find out. That said, the storytelling does get a bit muddy. The dialogue itself could use more polish, and the way it's presented sometimes makes it hard to tell who's speaking or why. I kept thinking, why am I here? How did I get here? Why hasn't the witch kicked me out yet? The controls are also a little inconsistent. Some interactions want the keyboard, some want the mouse. I feel like choosing either or might have been smoother. It's not game-breaking by any means, but it does make the experience feel rougher than it needed to be. Still, for a short indie puzzle game, I do think God in a Closet has a lot going for it. The kind of game where you can see the seams, but can also see the person behind those seams, carefully sewing the thing together stitch by stitch. Next up, The Day of the Jellyfish, another free-to-play point-and-click, and yeah, I think we can all look at that title and solve the mystery of what game inspired this one, without combining a rubber chicken with a pulley. This is a bright, goofy, 80s flavored comedy adventure about two musicians, Hank and Duck, who roll into town for a concert and instead find themselves dealing with corporate soda pollution, mutated sea life, and the ancient point-and-click tradition of everyone having exactly one hyper-specific problem that only you can fix. It's cute, it's silly, it's fully voiced, and it also taught me that games apparently aren't supposed to use a red cross to mark medical supplies, which I did not know. So now I'm playing a free SpongeBob-esque point-and-click and accidentally receiving a Geneva Conventions webinar. Educational? Technically. Legally alarming? Slightly. Worth the price of admission? Absolutely. And not just because the price of admission is $0. And if you want more adventures with Duck and Hank, you're in luck because the game devs apparently have another game coming out soon that follows this duo across some other assuredly wacky adventure. So stay tuned for that. Then I stumbled onto Danger in Pompeii. One of the strangest things about Pompeii is that we mostly remember it for the day it ended, not for its bakeries or taverns or theaters or art, or the graffiti complaining about politicians, which, if you're wondering, yes, ancient Romans also had people carving opinions into walls for strangers to read. History has a habit of turning whole places into fragments. Pompeii becomes the eruption, the Titanic becomes the iceberg, Chernobyl becomes the reactor. We humans like to compress entire worlds into the worst thing that ever happened to them. But before Vesuvius, Pompeii was just a normal, everyday city. People bought bread, kids got bored, dogs wandered around, stealing things off of tables. Somebody was probably avoiding work, somebody else was probably wondering what to make for dinner, and Danger in Pompeii understands that aspect of everyday life. It is, in fact, a day in the life kind of game. You play as either Flavius or Flavia, an ordinary teenager who receives a warning from Mercury that something terrible is coming, which sounds like the sort of information that should immediately change the course of your day, but instead, somebody still needs a specific item that only you can find. Somebody needs help at a theater, somebody else has lost something important. Adventure games have always been a little funny that way. The apocalypse can wait its turn while you help a stranger find their missing chicken. Speaking of which, the game includes sacred chickens. Not as a joke, although it is funny. Romans genuinely kept sacred chickens for divination. Before battles, they'd watch whether the birds ate enthusiastically, because apparently the fate of entire empires could hinge on whether poultry happened to be in the mood for breakfast. I tried to make a foul play pun here, but failed miserably. Please include some in the comments if you can think of something clever. Anyway, history rarely becomes less strange the longer you study it. The city itself is gorgeous. The game takes on this side-scroller, point-and-click hybrid approach. Everything's hand-drawn, inspired by archaeological evidence, and it's full of tiny details that reward instead of rush. You walk through the forum, bakeries, bathhouses, taverns, temples, homes. This game makes the whole thing feel less like a museum exhibit and more like a place where people actually live their daily lives. That said, I wish you could have interacted with more things. While I enjoyed seeing everything laid out in front of me, I wanted to go a little deeper into the world than what the game allowed. I wanted to click on the tables, talk to the people at the stalls, see what was going on. The reason why the game feels so much like a day in the life of a Pompeii citizen is because it was developed alongside Pompeii researchers and students from the Institute de la Rose. And you can feel that sort of confidence. Roman politics, religion, slavery, trade, food, they're simply part of the world. The game assumes you're curious enough to notice instead of stopping every 5 minutes to congratulate itself for being educational. That's why I don't completely want to lump this into the edutainment category. So you're going about your daily life, and then Vesuvius. I won't spoil the ending because it's worth experiencing, though you probably have a hint of what's going to happen. Oh, we are ending on a banger here, folks. The next game I have for you deserves all the accolades. I'm talking about The Darkest Dusk. This is a free-to-play game, but I would have been happy to play it at a much higher price point. It's woody, surreal, and has 3 chapters, 2 protagonists, multiple vivid locations, jury, intrigue, an actual sense of humor, and a beating heart underneath all that synth and shadow. The game is a tech-noir that technically takes place in Rome, or at least in the capital city. But I'll be honest, if I hadn't read that in the description, I'm not sure I would have clocked that at all. This isn't really Rome as a postcard, it's more of a backdrop, I guess? Backdrop to a backdrop? A huge, strange future place where one building sits quietly at the center of everything. You play mostly as Warden, who more or less gets appointed detective by circumstance, which is honestly how most adventure game protagonists receive that designation. You touch one weird object and suddenly the universe is like, congratulations, you are now responsible for solving metaphysics. And Warden just sort of accepts this, which I respect. Now, I don't even know where to begin with this story. There's all this AI tech, vending machines, elevators, and a sort of collective consciousness. AI isn't evil in this game. It's not generative. I don't think it's using up all the clean drinking water. Think of it more of a Jetsons-style world, like how 80s movies imagined the future. Visually, the game is gorgeous. There's a surreal art style that changes slightly depending on the chapters and scenes you're in. The pixel art doesn't just feel like nostalgia pasted over a modern game. It fits. The world is built out of hard edges, deep shadows, blushing and bruised skies, glowing screens, and little surreal details that make every location feel like it was a dream someone tried to render on outdated hardware. And the music is great. It has this synth-wavy, jazzy, shoegazy thing happening, which helped create a very cool neon pulse that carries throughout the game. It's funny, stylish, devastating, and redemptive. There are little emotional turns that sneak up on you. That might be my favorite thing about it. It has this sarcastic face and it pokes fun at itself. It knows adventure games are ridiculous. It knows inventory puzzles are ridiculous. Speaking of which, the inventory system was pretty cool. The actual tasks you have to complete show up as objects, so you have this visual cue of what to do next. If I had to complain, like if you physically trapped me in a room full of people and demanded one criticism before letting me leave, I'd say it's very linear. Sometimes it holds your hand. Sometimes, weirdly, the puzzle logic still manages to become obtuse anyway, which is the ancient curse of point-and-click design. Too much guidance and not enough guidance at the same time. But even that didn't bother me much, because the whole thing is so interesting. The writing has personality, the settings keep changing. I loved the protagonists and the plot, and for what appears to be a solo developer's first game, that's kind of wild. I am inserting this addendum here. The dev only has one game up on their Steam page, but they have several other different genres on their itch.io page. I haven't played them, but if I do, I will report back. Seriously though, go play this game. It's free, so you've got absolutely nothing to lose and a really good mystery to game. Somewhere out there is a developer refreshing their Steam page, wondering if anyone is ever going to play their weird little game that they spent 3 years of their life making. And maybe, just maybe, one of you is about to accidentally make their day. I think that's a pretty cool way to spend $5. If you've got another hidden adventure game that you want people to know about, leave it in the comments. Odds are I've missed quite a few. And until next time, thanks for watching.